Good morning, sunshine. This is a rock that I got from the river. I'm going to dot it so I can put it around my pool. I do have a coating of the triple thick glaze on here, and that's just to kind of smooth out a little bit of the divots. I'm going to find center with just a basic 16 section mandala template, and I'm pretty much just going to eyeball this a little bit, and I think that's pretty much center. So I'll mark center. I'll do a couple of sections, and I'm going to do just a sacred geometry design, so I'm not going to need all the sections marked off. Once I have my first row done, it's pretty much set in stone. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm just going to do a mark with a water erasable pencil or water soluble pencil from Yoke. So I'm just going to do a mark on the center. Doesn't have to be perfect as long as I can see it. And I can see it, and that's where my first dot is going to go. Now for the pool stones, I am reusing any leftover paint that I had from previous projects. So I'll kind of keep these maybe in a red and orange kind of a series. Not really sure, but let's see what happens. Okay, so I've picked out all the half-used portions of paints here. So I'm going to go from a red into an orangey type color, and then just kind of use these up, going from darkest in the center to lightest on the outside. And I'm hoping I have enough of each paint to get around this rock. If not, that's okay. I just mix some different colors in there, and it is what it is. So let's get started with that center dot. I'm going to do, like I said, the darkest in the center, so I'm going to use that red. I'm not sure exactly what red it is, again, because it's left over, but that's okay. If you're following along, just pick whatever colors that you like, whatever colors you have left over, and we'll start from there. Okay, so I use the DIY mandala stone tools I have since I started dotting. They have numbers on here. They were really small, so I just added a label. So I'm going to use number 28. So that converts to 14 millimeters. So every one of the numbers, if you take it in half, divide it in half, then that's how many millimeters of a dot you're going to get. Okay, so I'm going to load up my 14 mil tool with quite a bit of paint and just dot right in the center of that mark. Now I'm not particularly worried about if it's exact. Like I said, these are my pool rocks, so I wanted to put a bunch of rocks around the outside of my pool, and I think I got a little glop of something there. I wanted to put a bunch of rocks around my pool so that when I weed eat around, I didn't have to weed eat too close to the pool because it's an above ground pool. I didn't want to pop it. All right, so there is our first dot. What I started out doing when I started dotting mandalas is I would do this first dot, and then I would let it dry. because I always had a problem doing that first row around it, and if that center dot wasn't dried and I had to fix a mistake, a lot of times it would just turn out to be a mess. I'd have to wipe it all off and start over again. So I still do that. I still let that center dot dry. Even though I know how many dots are going to go around that 14 mil circle. But I still do it. I don't know. Maybe it's a comfort thing. What do? Do you let it dry, or do you just go all out and start dotting your first row? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so I've actually put the stone on a Lazy Susan just because it's a pretty heavy stone. So we're gonna start dotting with that number 1 millimeter tool, and we're just gonna go around the center. I'm not gonna go north, east, west, south. I'm going to be counting, and when I get to 28, I know that will be my last one. So this is how I do it. Many people do it differently. No way is right. Not one is right for everyone. So whatever is right for you, that's what you want to do. So I just go around and count. So as you can see, I didn't get 28, I got 26. But when I got to here, there was some holes that I didn't really fill in. So I spaced them out a little bit more, knowing that I had 4 more to do if I was really tight with the 1 mil. So I knew if I spaced it out, I can take it from 4 to 3 or to 2. So I ended up getting 26. I like the spacing around here, and like I said, when you're doing a natural stone, nothing's gonna be perfect. You gotta switch it up. Anyways, so we've got our first row, and with the Sacred Geometry, once you have that first row, all you do is you just build on it. So I know that this area is gonna have a little bit more spacing. So as I get larger, and it's fairly smooth, as I get larger, I'll just kind of tighten up those spaces and I'll make the other ones larger. You just kind of have to go with the flow when it's a natural stone. All right, so I'm ready to start that second row. I'm still going to use this 1 millimeter tool, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to load up a little bit more paint, and I'm just going to let it settle on the rock a little bit more so that I get a little bit more that comes off. So it's just going to be a gradual increase. It's not going to go up by 0.5 millimeters, but I just want to kind of even this second row out because of those dips and divots. So I'm going to stick with the same size tool and just adjust the size as needed. So just load up your tool and just next row, that dot goes right in between the first two. And then I always I skip and go to the third one, and then I can kind of adjust based on where my spacing is, where that second dot is going to be and how big it is going to be, because sometimes, like I said, you have to change the size. So I skip that one and I go over here, and these ones are quite tight, so I'm not going to make it too big, and I know I've got enough room in there to place a decent sized dot. And then sometimes I'll go, oh well, I can bridge that gap a little bit, and then just carry on all the way around. And I can always make that dot before just a little bit bigger if I need to fill that gap. and just carry along. Alright, so now that I've done that second row using that same 1mm tool, for the third row I'm going to stick with this red because I got quite a large surface that I want to cover, but I am going to move up to the 1.5mm tool. So again, loading up the tool, I'm just going to place the dot in between the two previous ones. And again, like I said, with a natural stone, you're at the mercy of the stone. If there's a divot, if there's a dimple, a peak, nothing's going to be perfect, but that's okay. It's art. Art isn't supposed to be perfect because it's done by a human. If you want perfect, well, don't go to AI because it's not perfect. You're never going to get perfection in art. Okay, so moving on to the next row. Again, I'm going to use the 1.5, but I'm just going to add a little bit more paint and create a little bit bigger dot as I go around for the next row. So just load up and right in between, and I just drop a little bit more paint down. So I kind of just dab, 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 just to kind of load it up a little bit more. And I missed that one. I go to the next one. And you can see how you can change the size of your dot just by pressure, the amount of paint you have on it, how many times you load it up. So when I first started, I used to get frustrated trying to follow other people's tutorials because they'd say use this size tool, use that size tool, and my spacing or my dot size was never quite like theirs, so it never looked like it. So I used to get very frustrated. So then I just didn't listen to whatever tool size they said and learned my tools. So I could eyeball when they said, okay, we're going to move to this dot size. I would say, to me, that might be one size larger of a tool. And then that's how I learned how to just go by eye, go by feel, go by how you make the dots, not how someone you're following is making the dots. All right, so I'm liking this. That's the fourth row. So we did 2 with the 1mm and 2 with the 1.5. So now we're going to switch to the 2mm, and I'm going to do one last row with this red before I move on to the next leftover paint that I've kind of smushed together and made a new color. So this is going to be my last row here, and again, just dot right in the center of the last 2 dots. And because I've moved up a tool, I know it's going to be a little bit bigger, and I don't have to load as much or dab as much down to increase the size. I'm just going to keep, oh, I got a little goopy something in there. Let's get rid of that. I'm just going to increase the size just by using a larger tool. So we'll go to the next one, skip that, go right in the middle, and then dab in between. There we go. And we'll carry on. All right, so that's the last row with that leftover red color. And now we're going to move into, it's kind of a reddy orange, almost like a burnt orange. This actually might be burnt orange. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I'm using leftover paints on this project, so bear with me that I can't tell you what color it is. If you're using your own leftover paint, just line them up in whatever order you want, and when you're finished and you want to do another row, just go to the next color. Okay, so we're going to keep with that 2mm. I'm just going to load up a little bit more paint, and when I'm using a leftover paint, my first couple of dips into it, I'm looking for any globbies, because I don't know how old this paint is, and there might be some globbies. I did use my tattoo ink mixer, but there still could be some that came off the side. So just be cognizant of that. Ooh, big word, cognizant. Anyways, I hope I used it right. All right, yeah, that's a cool transition. Okay, so we're just gonna carry on and finish this row off. All right, okay, so I like that transition. I had a little gloopy there. Not a big deal, you're not gonna see it. There's just like a divot right in there. That's fine. So I'm going to move up to the 2.5 millimeter tool, but I'm gonna keep with this burnt orange, rusty red color. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit more paint, and we're just gonna increase the size a little bit, right? And just move along. All right, I'm gonna finish off this row. All right, so there's that second row finished. I'm gonna do one more row, and I'm gonna keep at the 2.5 and just carry around. So right in the center, skip that, go to the next one, and now you can adjust in here if you need to close up a gap, or maybe make a little bit bigger of a gap from the last row. So you can just kind of cheat one over a little bit if you need to. I'm starting to get to where it's starting to slope down here. So I really need to be aware that the paint might travel, I call it. And by that I mean it's going to start to slide down a little bit. So when I finish a dot, if I'm on a surface that's like this, I'll finish with my stylus up so that the majority of the paint is up at the top of the dot, if that makes sense. It'll still, if you put too much on, it'll still slide a bit. But I find this helps, and maybe it's just in my mind, but it's what I do. Just going to clean that little bit up there, and I'm going to carry on. All right, that row looks good. I think we're going to move to more orangey color. Again, this is a real mix of a bunch of different leftover paint. So we'll see how that works. And 3.5 mil. And again, we're just going to carry on around. This is starting to slope off here. This is still kind of flat. So I'm just going to watch those areas there and make sure that I don't get any drips. I mean, the paint usually stays where you put it, but I actually find sometimes when I'm working on a surface like this and I dot, sometimes the tool will tend to slide down. So you have to watch out for that too. Be very careful when you're dotting on those sloped surfaces. Okay, so let's carry on. All right, that's going to be a nice little transition there too. I like that. And people always ask me, like, well, how do you decide your palettes? How do you decide what paints you're going to use where? And, you know, do you use the cubes? What do you use? I go, I use my leftover paints, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've been very lucky. I mean, I like them all, so. Okay, I'm just going to carry on and finish this row. Okay, so I really like that transition. I left off, that one was a 3.5 mil. So that would be a number 7 on my tool set, the DIY Mandala stone tools. So I'm going to move up to an 8, which is a 4 millimeter, and use that same concoction of oranges that I had. Okay, here we go. Right in the middle. And you'll see that I'm kind of dabbing when I'm doing this, and I will definitely do this on a natural surface. I won't tend to do it on something that is flat because I just make my dot. Sometimes I have to make a little bit of a weirder dot when it's on these kind of surfaces, so I see where the paint is going, and then I might nudge it a bit right or nudge it a bit left, depending on what the surface makes it do. So you'll see this a little different than when I'm doing a canvas, but it works for me. I just get to see, so I do a dot and kind of see, oh yeah, that's a good circle. It's not bleeding off anywhere or going into a divot, so I don't have to move it at all. But that one, if I carried on, I can see that it's starting to move into a little hole there. So again, I'm just dotting and seeing, okay, yeah, that's a good dot. I don't have to move it. And we're just going to nudge this one over a little bit. There you go. And I'm just going to carry on here. Okay, so judging by how much paint that took to go around with the number 8, I think I have enough to go all the way around with the number 9. So I'm just going to carry on here. And oh, there's a little mucky little clump. So I'll get rid of that. Okay. Right in the middle, and I'm just gonna carry on all the way around doing this next row. Alright, I think I was right. I think that's just about all I'm going to get off that color. So I open up my pots with my teeth. I probably shouldn't. But anyways, so this is the next color. So it's going to be quite a shift in the color from the last one, which is fine. Again, like, these are just leftover paint, so they are what they are. They is what they is. And I'm going to move up to the 5 millimeter, the number 10 on the mandala stone. And let's see what this color looks like. Let's see if there's any globs in here. No, it's pretty good. Okay. Let's see. It's going to be not as subtle. That's okay. I like it. I like it. Yeah, that's going to be just fine. Okay, I'm just going to keep going around here and finish off this row. Alright, so I'm liking this color, and I think I have enough to do one more row. And I don't know how much farther out I'm going to get, but we'll see. I might just switch to the yellow on this next row. So I'm moving up to the, oh, there's another glob there. The number 11 tool, which is a 5.5 millimeter tool. Sorry, I just had to get rid of that globby. And here we go. Here's the next row. You might have seen, again, like I said, where I drop the paint and then dab it a bit, and then I unload on top. And I'm just going to add a little bit more to this one. There we go. I'm just going to carry on, finish off this row. Okay, so I just want to show you right here. There was a little divot there. So the paint kind of went around the hole instead of going in, and that happens sometimes. And all you do is just take a little micro dotting tool, just pull a little bit into that hole. But I'm going to switch to my leftover yellow. I believe this is the DecoArt bright yellow. I can't be 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So I think we'll be good. I think we're going to move up to the 6 millimeter tool for our last row. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to do the walking the dots with the yellow in between. I always like to do that on a Sacred Geometry. It feels like it just finishes it off, and it just gives it the depth kind of in between the dots, instead of it just being the natural coming through. I don't know, I just like to do it. I think it makes it look like it's finished. So let's carry on. We're gonna do number 12, and this is gonna be our last row in what I think is bright yellow. We'll see. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I just want to add a little bit more just to make it just a touch bigger. Oh, I usually don't do that. Oh, I'm going to carry on. I usually go to the next one, just because in case I need to cheat a little bit and move something over. But I mean, we're at my last row, and I think we're pretty good, so I can just carry on through here. And as you get to the larger dots, you'll see what you're finished with is larger spaces. So that gives you an opportunity to have a little fun with that. Maybe do a little teardrop in there, maybe add a gemstone. I've never worked with the gemstones or the mirrors. It's just because it's just not something that I've done. I might do it in the future, but I haven't yet. But yeah, that little outside space, you can have some fun with it. Okay, I'm just going to carry on and finish this last row. Okay, so I'm liking this. I'm going to let these dry a little bit, and then I'm going to come in and walk the dots into the center just to finish it off. So I'm going to let this dry probably overnight. See you in the morning. Alright, so I've let this dry. I kind of like how there's still some of the rock showing. I didn't go all the way down. But again, I always like to finish off with some dots in between the dots. It kind of just gives it a nice effect. So I've got my 0.5 millimeter stylus tool, and I think I'm going to use the yellow. So I don't start with a big stylus and then try and work my way all the way in. I start with 0.5, a smaller one, and I start about 5 back, and then I'll move up to probably a 2.5 or a 3.5 to come down and meet, so that I'm not trying to stretch that paint out to get that big of a distance. It's a little too much. I like to just do like maybe 5 or 6 in. So probably just gonna start here and just walk the dots in. Might not get right to the center, but I might. There you go. That second one there is a little gloppy, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. I can try and just give it just a touch more. There. All right. So I'll just follow along here. So go to the next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And keep going all the way around. And because it is a natural stone, I seen that divot right there. I was like, oh, it's not going to go in there. That's okay. I'm going to just keep going around until I'm finished this, and then I'll come back in and do the larger bits. All right, so you see how those dots just kind of finish it off. So I'm going to come back about 5 and use a 2mm stylus and the yellow, and I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out, and then I'm going to do this in probably a 3.5 starting and working my way in. So I'm just going to go back probably maybe about here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That looks about right. Okay, I'm just gonna carry that all the way around. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I like that. So now I'm going to, I'm gonna use a 3.5mm tool and just finish this off with 3 more walking the dots. There we go. That's a nice progression from the 3.5mm right down to the 0.5 in the center there. Right. I really like this design. This is a really, it's a really heavy rock. I'm thinking it's probably about, where are we at here? It's probably about 22 centimeters. So it's gonna look great beside my pool. I'm probably gonna cover it with a maybe a high gloss varnish, a Liquitex, or I might use the DecoArt triple thick, which I used on the bottom. And then it's going around my pool. Little ray of sunshine. I hope you guys like this video, and you'll stick around and watch all the other ones. Thanks guys. Keep calm and noble on.